Life at a poker table is a lot like an NFL draft. How you move around the board is how you win. Today, we go through it with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest here on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We are breaking down the NFL draft with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. The Gametime app is who's bringing us to you today. Download the Gametime app, create your account, and make sure that you use that code LOCKEDONNFL. You're going to get $20 off your first ticket purchase at Gametime. So we're going to go through and have some fun today as we relive the NFL draft for the Kansas City Chiefs through the eyes of a poker table, something that Matt and I have done online, but not in person yet, as well as a lot of our cohorts. I enjoy this analogy quite a bit, Matt. And we're going to have some fun with it, folks. We're going to tell you what it's like to be on a heater in day 3. That's coming up later in the show. Drawing that inside straight is always a challenge, but when it hits big, and the Chiefs did that at one point in this draft. We'll get you there as well, and we'll start with the overbet that was the river play on the first round of the NFL draft. Matt's over at ChiefsDigest.com as well as Chiefs Digest on YouTube. You can find me at RogueAPC.com, NFL33 for all my draft and team building breakdowns, and RGR football. Please like, sub, and hit the bell here on YouTube. Join on Spotify, join on Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you can get a free podcast, you can get us 5 days a week plus. Thank you to the everydayers who already do that. Matt, I'm going to start, and we can set up the scenario however you like, from the poker end or from the football end. What stands out to you the most about how they went about round one?
Well, there's a couple of things, but one, making the move, a key part of Brett Veach's draft strategy was not giving up any picks. And that was, that's the way, I guess for poker terminologies, let's call it stack management, cash management. This was a case that Brett wanted to move up, didn't want to give away too much, wanted to make sure that, and that was a difficulty. I think they would have liked to have moved up earlier to try and get Worthy just to make sure he didn't go somewhere else. But making sure that they still had 7 picks was a big deal. So there are some teams that aren't going to trade positions with you. Because they want picks back. If they're going to give up something and you want to move up, they want a net gain in picks. Buffalo is one of those teams the Chiefs were able to make a deal because Brandon Beane's just like Brett Veach. He sees a value in gaining spots and moving up that way. So yeah, I think that was just good, cash management and stack management by Brett Veach in order to move up to get the deal that they wanted. And then, we'll stick with the analogy here and just keep going with it. The rest of the league is making moves, and they're making the moves. They're being aggressive against the Chiefs. Chiefs are kind of out of position with the 32nd pick. But then it gets down to the river, and the Chiefs are now the leader. They're coming out and being aggressive. They're the ones that are betting into everybody else. And that's what they did to get Worthy. And that's what kind of Worthy is to me. He's an aggressive move. Is it the best hand? Is it the best player? Maybe at that position, could they have gone elsewhere? Maybe. But is he just the best fit for the Chiefs at the right time? That's what Kansas City's banking on. They felt like that having a receiver that they can kind of plop into the Z position and be that 2018 Tyreek Hill to Patrick Mahomes. That's what they needed specifically. It wasn't about getting anything else. It was just about getting that particular player. And there wasn't really a plan B. You look at it, a couple of players who were Worthy-esque went right after him. But that in itself, I think, is a pretty good indication. The Chiefs wanted Worthy. They didn't want to substitute.
And it felt, just to carry the analogy, we're gonna use poker as the analogy all day long, folks. As it gets down and bettors are coming around to you, and you're just waiting, like you said, out of position, last in line, however you want to call it. Everybody else raises the stakes, and they're taking the wide receivers, and they're taking the big time defensive players, and everyone's counting the Chiefs out. And you get to that point where you can call Brandon Beane up and say, listen, I just need to do this for whatever the conversation was. I'd love to have recorded that, by the way, but we'll know that someday maybe. At the end, it's about actually taking and just making sure that you're in for that last card that makes your hand. They get that. And that is that everybody let them get Xavier Worthy. Even Xavier talked about it. Like, I told you all I was coming here for a very long time. There was clearly mutual interest. I think the rapport that he has with Andy Reid is very clear to see already. And so for the whole league to kind of sleep on it, and then allow them to make probably a move that they had to make. My guess is they felt they had to make that because someone else was likely or rumored to come in there and get him before they would have been on the clock. So they just waited it out. And when they had to pounce, they hit that river card. They overbet everybody and just crack on. And that's what pays off, is being aware of when to make the move for me. That's what I think Brett Veach did probably the most eloquently in this draft, maybe than some others where he also moved around.
Yeah. And, this is a case that, and I'll really extend the poker metaphor and really make it a stretch here, is that, Xavier Worthy isn't the best hand. He's not the best possible hand you could have on this board, but Brett Veach is betting that nobody else has anything better. So there's a flush on the board, Ryan. Brett Veach has a straight, but he's just betting that nobody else has a flush and that therefore his hand is good, because not everybody thought that Xavier Worthy was a first-round pick. The Chiefs obviously had a first-round grade on him. He was one of their 16 to 18 players that they thought was a first-round player. That's why they feel lucky to have gotten him. There are plenty of other teams that didn't have him as one of those players. So this isn't a universal selection. And even guys like, Dane Brugler, who I think is the absolute best when it comes to building a board. And good grief, if you just look at how many of his selections got taken in the first two rounds, in the order that they went, that proves it. Worthy was way down there. He was not one of the top picks. A lot of people had him as a second round grade, maybe late first, even some had an early third. So this isn't a universal player that you just say, hey, this was a first round guy. But Brett Veach is betting that this guy is better than everybody thinks that he is, that he is going to mature, he's going to grow, he's going to be able to develop into being a better player. And I'm not sure, there's, on one hand, there's a lot of people who are saying that the Chiefs fell in love with that 4-2-1, that they fell in love with the speed, and therefore that they maybe are overvaluing him based on the speed. I think I'm buying into the other way here, that other teams are kind of missing out and on it, that they're more fixated on wondering what's wrong with him because he can run fast and therefore there's something missing. And maybe that's, maybe it's because he tried to go for the record. And that's one thing that, in our short conversations with Brett, I hadn't got to ask him, and I really want to at some point, which is that the fact that Xavier Worthy probably spent more of his training time trying to get the 40 record than really anything else, trying to get ready for the combine. Was that a good or a bad thing? Because I think the Chiefs see it as a good thing. That shows his competitiveness, that shows his, tirelessness, his toughness, that he's willing to go out there and try to just put everything he's got into getting a record and winning. There's probably a lot of guys that they would look at and say, you know what, they weren't trying to win the combine. Xavier Worthy tried to win the combine. And so, he's not, as much as I've been guilty of this too, because I asked him and Brett and Andy about the weight. He's not a 165-pound receiver. He's probably more like a 175-pound receiver who just lost 10 pounds to run a 4.21. Now, the Chiefs are going to want him to be a 185-pound receiver that can take a punishment like Tyreek Hill did and pop back up almost every time. So there's work to be done there. But the Chiefs believe that is going to happen, and therefore that's why they believe that even though there's better hands on the board, they think they got the winner.
I think I agree with them. So on that hand, they got it done. They lived to the next round. And when we get back to the next evolution, we're moving tables, folks. When we get there, we're going to go over what happened on day 2 here on the Lockdown Podcast Network. There's lots and lots that goes into winning championships. It takes patience, it takes drive, and it takes passion. Whether you're trying to win the combine or you're trying to win a championship, you want to keep your ride or die alive. That takes patience as well. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your ride or die, and your vehicle will stay up to the level of its peak performance that you are looking for. Whether it's superchargers, exhaust kits, or just nice lighting, you can have the speed, power, and style. eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, guaranteed, with that guaranteed fit every time, your money back, no matter what. Because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. You are with all the parts that you want, the prices that you need. You can make it easy to make that car your MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, and exclusions apply. Keep eBay Motors guaranteed fit is only available for U.S. customers. Once you get to that point and you're riding along, you might want to get in the action somewhere around town. And sometimes it's just not plannable. You got to get last minute tickets, and that's where Gametime comes in. It's an authorized ticket reseller right now for the NBA. The NHL playoffs are going off right now. You can get in on all of it if you want to. They have a series of deals for you, whether it's last minute, up to 60% off of sports, concerts, comedy, theater troops, the whole 9 yards. You can get flash deals and zone deals within an arena, and all that pricing is guaranteed. And they're going to give you 110% back if it's not the lowest price available. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets anywhere with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and that's going to get you $20 off of your first purchase no matter what. Terms apply, but again, create the account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $20 off. It's Gametime. It's last-minute tickets. It's guaranteed prices, and it is the lowest price you're going to find. Now, Locked On Sports Today has some pretty low prices because it's free. Here on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV, you get 24/7 sports of all of our greatest shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. So like, subscribe, and hit over there, as you would do to Chiefs Digest here on YouTube or the website, chiefsdigest.com, and obviously sub to this channel if you haven't already. I want to get to day 2, Matt, because I was prepared. I was in for the long haul. I brought my sack lunch to put next to the chair next to me. I got my car cover. I'm good. I'm in for all the haul. And they only had one pick, but they were prepared, and they played through a lot of bad hands to get there. A lot of waiting, and a lot of guys that I think they probably liked on their board in some capacity. They watched them go off because they had a goal in mind. I think Mike Borgonzi put it best to start his presser about Kingsley Suamataia is that they had him as a target. They wanted to get that player. As they narrowed the list of offensive tackles, they wanted Kingsley. And so the process to get there, I think, means if you get a good hole card, you're going to try to ride that out and see what the flop brings, right? I think that's the way that they approach it, and they just had to keep going until they got somewhere where they felt they could get business done. Was that the right approach in your mind?
Well, it certainly worked out for them. I mean, they took a gamble in that there were enough players at different positions in the second round that if they fell to them, they still felt like that they were going to be getting value. And, certainly a lot of those players started to go off the wayside. I mean, once you got into the mid-50s and Ben Sinnotts go off the board and Patrick Paul and Marshawn Nealand, I mean, some of these, Michael Hall Jr. too, I mean, these were some guys that the Chiefs had some 30 visits on. Once the draft got to 59 in the second round, and I had there's 5, at that point 6 points because 6 spots left because the Chiefs hadn't moved up yet. But there's 5 picks to go, and I'm thinking there's 4 players that the Chiefs might like here. And, one was Blake Fisher, and he goes off to the Texans. Luckily, Buffalo takes Cole Bishop from Utah. And that was the X factor. That wasn't the player I was expecting to go in a spot like that. But then it's like, okay, Chiefs might have some interest in Ennis Rakestraw. He goes. All right, you know what? Next tackle up, Roger Rosengarten. This is probably the guy that the Chiefs are looking at. He goes. And now it's like there's only one player left on the board that makes any sense in the world for the Chiefs, and it's Kingsley Suamataia. And we're still trying to figure out how to pronounce his name because I don't know that anybody's pronouncing his name right yet. But yeah, I mean, it was a case of the Chiefs were sitting there at 64, and literally at this point, the one player left that they want on the board is there available for them. I mean, it was the equivalent of an inside straight. I mean, and even more so in the sense that it's probably a case where they had 4 outs. Probably a couple of people were holding maybe a couple of those cards around the table. So maybe they weren't going to hit that card, but it comes out. I don't think that there was a whole lot of worry about the 49ers taking him at that spot, but why did the Chiefs move up? I think the Chiefs were more worried that another team was going to move up and take that spot, so that's why they were aggressive and made the deal with the 49ers just to move up one place, just to make sure somebody else didn't. But once again, doesn't cost them any picks. It only cost them positions. And frankly, we'll talk about this when we get to day 3. It didn't matter because they still got the players that they wanted. So Another, solid move. And this is, again, I mean, so Maria, if this works out, what are you looking at? You're looking at maybe 3 years down the road, Sotomayor is your left tackle, Wanya Morris is your right tackle, and you've got a cheap, affordable offensive line for a while.
And I think that's the key. You said something very specific that triggered me as well. And for me, if you're in this situation and you're working on a straight draw and you get to the point, the turn comes around to you and no one's really betting it up. No one's really making a whole lot of moves. And you have 5-6 outs that could come on that card. You got to be aggressive and pop it right then. And for me, the trigger was Roger Rosengarten because I thought he was a decent fit as well. A guy that can play both sides, a guy that could have allowed Juwan Taylor to flip had they wanted that to happen. And really, other than Kingsley, the last guy in tier 3 in the offensive tackles. And for me, I don't know where Dame ranked them all, but tier 3 is a precipitous drop off to tier 4. That was all guesswork at tier 4. So he literally was the last guy. So you overbet that turn and try to get everybody out that you can, and it worked out. Is it a surprise to you? And A, do you agree that Rosengarten might have been the all-in kind of trigger there? And B, is it a surprise to you that it just happened to roll that way to the point that everybody didn't really understand what was going on with what the Chiefs were targeting?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think everybody should have figured out what the Chiefs were targeting, because I think the rest of the league thought they were going to go tackle in the first round. And when they went receiver, I think then you absolutely should have known they were going tackle in the second round. And now the question is just, do teams understand what their board looks like? Maybe, I think, was the next tackle that went off, Kieran Amagia from Yale. I don't know necessarily that he was that high on the Chiefs board. I was high on him. My partner on the 41 is the Mike podcast, Nick Jacobs, was huge on him. But I agree. I mean, if Baltimore takes Suamadia instead of Rosengarten at 62, I think the Chiefs make the trade still with the 49ers and move up to get Rosengarten. I mean, I think it was that close. I mean, at that point, because I think Suamadia was absolutely the divining line as far as, certainly where the Chiefs had it, but probably where a lot of teams had it was like, okay, after that, the drop off is significant. You're no longer talking about a player who might be plug and play, who can come in and immediately compete. You're probably talking now about all players who have a little bit more development, a little bit more seasoning before they'd be ready, and wouldn't necessarily be in a spot where they can come compete right now with Wanya Morris for that starting job.
And I think that's the competition that really is the payoff here. You drug a nice pot there, and you're ready to go to battle with the next thing that you have to go overcome. They did that again on day 3 and picked up some plots that they really liked. We're going to get to explaining how that came about and what it means long-term for the day 3 picks coming up next on the Locked On Podcast Network. Listen, we're going to take a timeout here for a second and talk about Monopoly Go, because I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. Why are you we've talked about this ad nauseum. There's just so much fun in this game that I think you guys really do want to get in on. It's Monopoly Go. You can team up with friends for time tournaments, work together to take over and build each other's boards. And then you can even get even more done by winning awesome prizes that you can unlock together. There's so much more that you can get. Unique stickers you can trade with your friends and complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis that taunt your friends. That's always a good part. And smash their buildings and heist their values. Plus, Monopoly Go feels like a new and exciting way to play a classic game. A way to include your own mini games, digging into treasures, and a robot Pachinko machine even. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers that are available for rent frenzies. There's always something you can discover on Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it for free right now on the Google Play Store, as well as the regular Play Store over on Apple. Game on. Monopoly Go is a lot of fun, and we have a property right here that we're trying to control this table with. Welcome back. Make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today feed, folks, on Amazon Fire and here on YouTube. Matt, I thought day 3 was, you've condensed, you've moved tables. You're at the final table now, and it's just about playing, I think, tight enough to maintain your stack, but aggressive enough to put players out and take advantage of what they give you. And I thought taking advantage of what the Chiefs did the best on day 3. Nothing could be more so than, I think, the Hicks pick in waiting out a player that was a second round value on my board, and I think on many. I know it's not a position of particular need. Obviously, with Brian Cook expected to return, you have Justin Reed under contract. Shamar Connor was just drafted last year. But what did you think of the Hicks pick and the fit for what it means going forward in the secondary?
Yeah, I did not in my wildest imagination believe that the Chiefs were going to get Jaden Hicks. I mean, this was absolutely just backing into pocket aces at the right time, because I definitely had the Chiefs going safety in almost, I think, every single one of my mock drafts, because to me it's a need. I mean, you've got Brian Cook coming back from an injury. I think you want some insurance there. Who's your next guy up after that? Well, right now it's Deion Bush. Deion Bush is an older special teams primary player. I mean, I think even though, hey, he was coming in late at the end of last season due to injuries, once again, I mean, if you're going into the season with Deion Bush as your number 4 safety, I think you're worse than you were a year ago. So you needed somebody. And then you add on to that, you look towards next year, you don't have Justin Reed under contract. So how important now is it to have potentially a Justin Reed replacement, or at least somebody who can come in and be your number 3 if Brian Cook and Shamari Connor are going to be your starters? This is a Chiefs defense that depends on the safety big time. You need to be able to put 3 good players on the field at any moment. Jaden Hicks is that guy. He can play any position. Obviously, he's got a lot of athleticism. He's a big dude. The only knock that I could find, and I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, he was consensus pretty much the number 1 or number 2 safety on almost every board. So him falling there, the only knock I could find were scouts saying that maybe he might grow out of the safety position. Not a concern for me, not a concern for the Chiefs. I think Greg Castillo, scouted him, not a concern for him. And I know someone pointed out to me when I made this note on Twitter, and somebody noted, well, certainly not holding back Kyle Hamilton, who's like 6'3" and 240 pounds. Yeah, not a problem. You can be an all-pro and be a big safety. So not an issue for me. And even baseline this year, if I had to bet on any rookie leading this team in special teams tackles, it might be Jaden Hicks, because he's going to be a special teams beast and should be in a spot if they're healthy. I mean, he's going to be the number 3, number 4 safety. He'll get some rotational looks here and there, I'm sure, but special teams be a big role. And then next year, hey, if Justin Reed's not back, you've got an affordable, guy who can be a replacement down the road. I mean, he's even a guy that I think can fill a leadership down the road, not necessarily in year 1 or year 2, but certainly year 3, year 4. And if he stays beyond that, I mean, I think you got a guy who could be that kind of player.
I completely agree with you. And I think the pick just before him, and I saved it this way because I think he's more value, but I think he was farther under the radar. Jared Wiley in the 4th, I think he was probably higher on some boards. He was a little bit on mine. I had him at the top of the 4th. He's like pocket jacks to me, that you're able to just keep betting people out of the hand with pure intimidation, and you win the hand with what is not the greatest hole cards. I think the fit and finish that he brings to being able to be a guy that can do some of the blocking that Blake Bell did, as well as be a guy that's more like Travis in terms of size and sustainability than Noah Gray is, I think it's a great fit. How did you take that pick, and what do you like for the future for him?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to upgrade him a little bit to pocket queens, because pocket jacks are just the worst hand in poker. They always lose, Ryan. So I'm going to upgrade him to queens. But absolutely, I know, I completely agree. And I like this pick for another reason, which is that the Chiefs got out of their kind of habit of looking for a mismatch player instead of, because I think we learned last year, Noah Gray is a really nice tight end. He's a nice complementary player, especially to Travis Kelce. But I think you learned in week 1 last year. I mean, he's not a Travis Kelce replacement. And why? Because he doesn't have the size and the strength that Kelce has. And Wiley does that. I mean, he is a bigger bodied tight end. And that's just a reality of the positions. You can be a successful chess piece at 6'3" like Noah Gray is. There's some guys out there, your Evan Ingrams of the world are like that, but you're not going to put up usually, Travis Kelce type numbers unless you've got that big, strong body. And Wiley's got that. Now the question is, how much can he learn from Kelce? How much of Kelce can he replicate without as much athleticism? I mean, there's no doubt he's not Travis Kelce. So asking him to be that, is, to me, just a cruel thing to do. But is he the kind of tight end that could fit perfect in an Andy Reid system? Absolutely. I mean, there have been other great tight ends in an Andy Reid offense that aren't Travis Kelce and been very productive. Wiley could be that. So, I don't want to put a number or a ceiling and say, hey, this is a 1,000-yard guy or an 800-yard guy. To a degree, Travis Kelce is a unicorn. I mean, he put up numbers obviously in the tight end offense that nobody's ever put up under Andy Reid. But the tight end position is important. Offense runs through this tight end. And for the first time, I think ever in the Travis Kelce era, the Chiefs have a player that you feel like if required to go in and step in for Travis Kelce, that maybe they could, do some of the things that they do with Travis in the offense.
I hope so. And I think that that's probably, you can see that from here. The last 3 picks are, in my opinion, pretty much, playing dead man's hand and drawing pocket eights, with the 2 linemen, the 2 guys that are middle of the road. They're going to get work done for you, but they got to grow into it. And CJ Hansen, who was one of my sleeper picks. And I do like his athleticism inside in the phone booth. And Norzad, that I think can give you 3 position variability pretty easily. My question to you, they're pretty straightforward. Haddon's the mystery. I didn't have him on the board because of the injury. And what do you take away from that? Is it fit in capability rather than polish? Or how do you see him fitting in?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, one, when he played, he was ridiculously productive. And yes, I mean, I think your concern is looking at the injuries. Okay, well, were these injuries that you feel like are, going to cause an issue? I mean, there's nothing in there that, from an injury standpoint, that you look at and think, okay, well, this is going to affect his athleticism. And his last one was shoulder surgery. I mean, are there injuries that make you think, okay, well, this guy's brittle or he's injury prone, or is it just bad luck? I think the Chiefs' assessment of it, obviously, they would have looked at the medicals. I think they're going to say, okay, wait a minute, this is a big, strong, healthy kid. Probably just some bad luck with the injuries. But when he's played, he's been ridiculously productive. I mean, he's had and that's one thing that the Chiefs look for in their corners is they want, college productivity, be able to get interceptions and get your hands on the football. So yeah, the injuries have limited his experience a little bit. That I don't think concerns the Chiefs that much, but you're right. I mean, when you start talking about just, the similarities that this kid has to the Chiefs' prototypical corner are ridiculous. I mean, the only thing that you could really criticize him for is not being as fast as L'Jarius Sneed. Otherwise, almost the same height. He's like a half inch taller, same weight, the same 10 split. I mean, almost very similar broad jump. I mean, there's only a couple areas where there was, and one was the 40 time. And I get that, hey, 4.37 is faster than 4.57, but he's also hasn't been playing football since October. He only really got the clearance to go full bore after the combine because he didn't test at the combine because he wasn't medically cleared yet. So even at his pro day, he wasn't 100% yet. And that's what I think I look like. I'm like, wait a minute. His 10 split was the same as L'Jarius Sneed. So is he, once he gets his stamina back, is that 4.57 40 speed going to be better, maybe closer to a 4.37? I think it probably will. So I think the Chiefs are projecting a little bit there, but I joked about it, but it's absolutely true. I mean, Hayden is absolutely, we haven't officially gotten the pronunciation on him yet, but he is absolutely the picture of a cornerback that comes in the frame that Brett Veach buys. I mean, an absolute prototypical Chiefs corner.
I think that that's exactly what you want. Just keep playing those aces, folks. That's what we see in our recap with the right poker analogy. I hope that you enjoyed this. Check out ChiefsDigest.com and Matt's channel, Chiefs Digest, here on YouTube. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell here on this channel. Thanks, Matt, for playing along with me, and I'm sure that you drug the last pot today.
I don't know about that. Next time we're at a poker table, Ryan, I'm all in.
All right, I'm with you. Have a good one, folks. We will catch up with you tomorrow, and we will be back on the draw for these kids as they get ready for rookie minicamp. Thanks for being with us today.